Russia said Pokrovsk had fallen. That was the headline. That was the message sent to the world. And that was the story the Kremlin wanted diplomats to believe as Russian and American envoys prepared to sit down in Moscow. But here's the problem. Pokrovsk never fell. In fact, what's happening there right now may be one of the most lopsided and brutal defensive battles of the entire war. To understand why this matters, and why Russia's claims are unraveling, we need to slow down and look at how this announcement came together. On December 1st, 2025, nearly 2 years into the war, Moscow finally declared a victory it had been chasing for months. Pokrovsk, a city that had become the centerpiece of Russia's summer offensive, was supposedly captured. The timing was convenient, almost too perfect. Just days before high-level diplomatic talks, just as pressure was mounting on Russia to show progress, just as the Kremlin needed leverage. But on the ground, Pokrovsk was not a conquered city. It was a kill zone. Ukrainian forces were still entrenched, Russian units were still attacking. The casualty ratios coming out of the area were staggering. Military analyst Chuck Farrer put it bluntly. Despite Russia outnumbering Ukrainian defenders by as much as 10 to 15 to 1, Pokrovsk was still not under Russian control. Not partially, not effectively, not functionally. Instead, Russian assault groups were being funneled into a dense, ruined urban battlefield that Ukraine had spent months preparing. Every street, every collapsed building, every railway line, all of it mapped, ranged, and turned into a three-dimensional trap. This is where the story flips. Because Pokrovsk isn't just holding, it's bleeding Russia dry. According to multiple Ukrainian and Western assessments, Russian infantry losses in the Pokrovsk sector are running at roughly 15 soldiers for every one Ukrainian casualty. That is not a typo. 15 to 1. In modern warfare, against a supposedly weaker force, that ratio is catastrophic. And it gets worse. Russia didn't stumble into this fight with a token force. By late autumn, estimates suggested Moscow had committed somewhere between 150,000 and 170,000 troops to the Pokrovsk axis. That's more manpower than the entire active duty armies of many NATO countries. Ukraine, by contrast, is defending with a fraction of that number. If Farrer's math holds, and other sources broadly support it, Ukraine may have between 11 and 17,000 soldiers holding the line, outnumbered, outgunned, under constant bombardment. And yet, Pokrovsk stands. This is not because Russia isn't trying. Russian aircraft are pounding what remains of the city. Artillery fires, whenever ammunition allows. Drones saturate the skies. Entire neighborhoods have been reduced to rubble, but that destruction hasn't broken Ukrainian defenses. It has strengthened them. Ruined cities are nightmares for attacking armies. Collapsed buildings become fighting positions. Narrow streets become kill corridors. Elevation changes create overlapping fields of fire. Thermal signatures pop against cold concrete. Movement becomes predictable. Russia is learning, again, from its that brute force doesn't win urban wars anymore, and every day Pokrovsk holds, the gap between Russia's claims and reality grows wider. This isn't a story about a city that fell. It's a story about a city Russia can't take. And what that failure says about the war as a whole. When wars stall, governments lie. They lie about territory, they lie about progress, and most of all, they lie about casualties. Pokrovsk exposes that pattern in brutal detail. Let's start with the manpower Russia threw into this fight. Ukrainian military sources estimate that roughly 150,000 Russian troops have been committed to the Pokrovsk direction since late summer. Other reports push that number closer to 170,000. Either way, it represents a massive concentration of force for a single city. To put that in perspective for a US audience, that's roughly equivalent to deploying the entire active duty strength of the US Marine Corps into one urban battle, and still not winning it. And yet, for all that manpower, Russian progress has been minimal. Confirmed Russian losses between early September and December were already in the thousands, and those are conservative numbers. Ukrainian commanders have been careful to emphasize that many casualties simply can't be verified in real time. Bodies aren't always recovered, units disappear, assault groups stop responding. President Zelensky added another layer to the picture when he stated that Ukraine had confirmed around 25,000 Russian deaths using drone footage alone, with the majority of those losses occurring in the Pokrovsk sector. That figure shocked even seasoned analysts, but here's why it matters. Drones don't guess. They record, they observe, they verify. When you combine drone confirmations with battlefield reporting and intercepted communications, a clear pattern emerges. Russian units are being fed into Pokrovsk in repeated waves, suffering heavy losses, and achieving almost nothing in return. One Ukrainian commander described the city as a death trap. The railway line slicing through Pokrovsk divides the battlefield into northern and southern zones. Russian forces attempting to infiltrate the northern districts do so in small groups, hoping to avoid detection. But Ukraine's surveillance net, drones, sensors, thermal optics, catches most of them before they can establish footholds. Those that slip through rarely survive long. And while Russian media talks about pressure and momentum, the reality is far uglier. Roughly 30 to 40% of Russia's daily casualties across the entire front are coming from this one area. That means Pokrovsk alone is consuming a massive share of Russia's manpower losses. Think about that. This isn't a breakthrough sector. It's not opening the road to Kiev. It's not collapsing Ukrainian defenses. It's grinding down Russian units at a pace that would alarm any professional military. Even on days Russia launches dozens of assaults, the results barely move the map. In one 24-hour period, Ukrainian forces reported repelling 57 Russian attacks, nearly half of them in the Pokrovsk direction. Dozens of drones destroyed, vehicles burned, assault groups wiped out. For Russia, this is the worst possible trade. High losses, low gains, no strategic breakthrough. And the longer this continues, the harder it becomes to hide, because casualty math doesn't lie, even when governments do. At the heart of Russia's Pokrovsk disaster is a deeper problem. Its army is fighting the last war. For decades, Soviet and Russian doctrine relied on mass, armor, and momentum. Tanks spearhead the advance. Infantry follows in armored vehicles. Cities are encircled, battered, and eventually taken. That approach worked, before drones. In Pokrovsk, it has become a liability. Large armored movements don't sneak anymore. They announce themselves. Reconnaissance drones spot them kilometers away. Artillery is pre-registered, attack drones are queued, bottlenecks are mapped. One destroyed tank can halt an entire assault. Russia learned this the hard way earlier in 2025 when armored thrusts near Pokrovsk were annihilated. So it adapted, or tried to. Instead of mass formations, Russian commanders began pairing tanks. One stays back to provide fire support. The other pushes forward, supported by drones. Roles switch, movements stay small. On paper, it sounds clever. In reality, it changes very little. Ukrainian drones operate beyond tank gun range. Electronic warfare disrupts coordination. Thermal imaging exposes engines and crews. And once a tank is immobilized, it becomes a beacon, drawing fire until it burns. When armor fails, Russia falls back on infantry infiltration. Small groups, 5 to 10 soldiers, move on foot, slipping through ruins, hoping to establish positions inside the city. Sometimes they succeed, but success is temporary. Urban defenders know the terrain. They've prepared interlocking fire zones. They understand elevation sightlines and choke points. A ruined city favors the defender. As one analyst put it, Pokrovsk is a three-dimensional battlefield where Ukraine holds the high ground, even without hills, and Russia keeps sending men into it. Winter only magnifies the imbalance. Snow and mud slow movement. Cold exposes thermal signatures. Logistics strain. Troops exhaust faster. Meanwhile, Ukrainian defenders wait, watching through optics and drone feeds. Russian forces have to move. Ukraine doesn't. That asymmetry is deadly. Long-range Ukrainian strikes have also shredded Russia's ability to sustain the fight. Billions of dollars in equipment and infrastructure have been destroyed. Supply lines are stretched. Repair cycles lag. Every assault now costs more, in men, machines, and morale. And still, Pokrovsk stands. Pokrovsk isn't just a battle, it's a warning. For Russia, it demonstrates the limits of brute force in modern war. Even overwhelming numbers don't guarantee success when tactics are outdated and defenders are technologically superior. For Ukraine, it shows what effective defense looks like. Layered surveillance, disciplined troops, and patience. The math is unforgiving. If Russia truly faces a 15-to-1 casualty ratio, then taking Pokrovsk would require burning through an army roughly the size of the United Kingdom's entire active force for one city. And Pokrovsk is only one part of the Donbass. British defense officials have already warned that Russia's remaining combat power is so degraded that fully capturing the region could take years and millions more casualties. That's the reality behind the rhetoric. Despite everything Putin projects, Russia has failed to achieve its strategic goals. Its fleet has been humbled, its armor destroyed, its manpower stretched to the breaking point. And Pokrovsk, battered but unbroken, stands as proof. The city was supposed to fall in summer, then autumn, then winter. It's still standing. And as long as it does, Russia's war grinds on, costing lives it can't easily replace. Sometimes wars aren't decided by sweeping offensives or dramatic breakthroughs. Sometimes they're decided by cities that refuse to fall. Pokrovsk is one of those cities, and right now it's winning. By this point, the question isn't whether Russia can keep attacking Pokrovsk. It's whether Russia can survive what those attacks are doing to itself. Wars are not only fought on maps, they're fought in factories, hospitals, cemeteries, and census data. And Pokrovsk is quietly becoming one of the most expensive battles Russia has fought since the invasion began, not in territory gained, but in future lost. Every soldier sent into Pokrovsk is a soldier who won't be available somewhere else. Every tank destroyed, there is one that won't appear on another front. Every experienced unit chewed up in urban combat has to be replaced with something worse. Less trained, less cohesive, less effective. This is how wars tip without headlines announcing it. Russia still has numbers, but numbers are not the same as usable combat power. Mobilization fills uniforms, not skill gaps. And Pokrovsk is exposing just how hollow Russia's manpower advantage has become. Reports from inside Russia already show cracks forming. Recruitment bonuses are climbing, standards are dropping, contracts are being extended, prison recruitment has returned in force. These are not signs of a confident military. They're signs of strain. Pokrovsk accelerates all of it. The longer this battle drags on, the more Russia is forced into a vicious cycle. Send more troops to fix the problem, lose them faster, and then send even more to compensate. That loop doesn't end in victory, it ends in exhaustion. Ukraine understands this, that's why it isn't rushing. Defensive warfare favors patience. Every failed Russian assault strengthens Ukraine's position politically and militarily. It reinforces Western confidence. It validates continued aid. And it quietly rewrites assumptions about how long Russia can sustain this war. This is especially important for American audiences to understand. From the outside, it can be tempting to view battles like Pokrovsk as static, just another name on a long list of contested cities. But in reality, this is the kind of fight that shapes negotiations long before diplomats ever sit down. When Russia claimed Pokrovsk had fallen, it wasn't just lying about a city. It was trying to lie about leverage, because leverage doesn't come from press releases. It comes from battlefield momentum, and Pokrovsk shows Russia has very little of it. If anything, the battle suggests the opposite, that Russia's ability to conduct large-scale offensive operations is shrinking, that its tolerance for losses is being tested, and that its strategic clock is working against it, not for it. Meanwhile, Ukraine is doing something far more dangerous to an invading force than counterattacking. It's letting the enemy fail. That may sound passive, but it's not. It's deliberate, it's calculated, and historically, it's devastating. Many wars are lost, not when an army is defeated in one dramatic moment, but when it realizes, too late, that every option left leads to more loss and no gain. Pokrovsk feels like one of those moments, not because Russia can't keep fighting there tomorrow, or next week, or even next month, but because nothing about the trajectory suggests a different outcome. More attacks will come, more soldiers will die, and the city will likely still stand. At some point, the question stops being, when will Pokrovsk fall, and becomes, how much is Russia willing to lose pretending it already has? That answer hasn't come yet. But every day the fighting continues, Pokrovsk delivers it piece by piece. Now let us know what you think. Is Pokrovsk the beginning of the end for Russia's offensive strategy, or just another brutal chapter in a war with no easy finish? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.